Hey guys, I hope you guys are all doing okay. So today's task is I have a broken soap dish here, which we're going to use Fusion360 to design and then print a new one, 3D print a new one. As you can see, it's broken. It's got a nice shape to it, so it's going to be a little bit of a challenge in Fusion360. I'm going to do it by taking a photograph of the frame, resizing it and adding it into Fusion360 as a canvas, and then we're going to basically just design this. I'm going to walk you through each step of how to get all the different design steps and features, including these little bars here embossed onto the internal concaved surface. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Okay, so the first thing we need to do here is load in a canvas. Now we can select it just here in the menu, or we can press the S key to open up the design shortcuts. We'll be using design shortcuts and the S key a lot during this video because I prefer it than trying to find the icons at the top. So I'm going to load in a picture that I've already taken of the soap dish holder here, and it's stored on my computer, so I've selected the computer option and I'm going to place it on my design screen. What you notice is that it needs rotating 90 degrees just to make my design a little bit more easier. So I just do that here by typing in directly 90 degrees into the Z angle and clicking OK. Perfect. So now we're going to do our initial sketch. I'm going to place it. We can either create a sketch from up here like this, or we can use our S key again and type sketch, canvas sketch. And we're going to place that sketch on the plane that is the same orientation as our canvas. Next, we're going to create a rectangle that's over the top of our canvas, and we're going to use this to size the canvas to be the exact correct size of the part. Now I've already measured this, and I know it's got to be 110 by 73 millimeters. So we go ahead and lock those in. Problem here though is we can see that the canvas isn't the same size as the template. Now if I try to edit the canvas, I lose the template created by the sketch because of the history and the timeline. So if I look at the bottom left and I drag the canvas to be after we created the template, now when I edit the canvas, I can see the template also. I can now drag the canvas and alter the size and move it around to sit inside, exactly inside, the rectangle that is my template. I'm going to speed this part up a little bit because I spend a lot of time here to make sure it's exactly sitting where I need it to be, perfectly aligned with that square sitting right in the middle of that soap dish holder. Also note, it's necessary to use the window there on the right to make sure you get the pinpoint accuracy when you're working down to sort of, points of a millimeter. Perfect. So what we'll do next is we'll just put the timeline back and put the canvas at the beginning of the timeline again. What we need to do next is create the first arc. Now, we shan't draw the whole image here because there's no need to. We can use the mirror in function later because it's a very symmetrical shape. We'll just draw the first quadrant, and I'm going to choose the top left hand corner to do that. Now we won't use the normal line. What we're going to use a fit point spline function. And we're going to make sure we start off at the exact 90 degrees to the central point. If we don't, when we do the mirror function, it'll not completely match. So we're going to start off there, and we're going to put a few points around, and we just click the mouse to create a few points around that curve. Now we get time to alter it later, so we don't have to be too exact. And I'm going to speed this up a little bit because it is a little bit tiresome in the sense that it's better to be as perfect as possible at this point. So I'll place some random points around the corner until I get to that edge there on the left. And once I get there, I just join it and click that little tick there to end the process. Now, I've not gone mad with too many points, because we can always add some more later. But here's what you've got to be careful when you look at the splines. When you zoom in just here, you can see that it's actually going above my size line. So what I need to do now is if I highlight the spline and right click, I can select to insert another sketch point. When I do that, I can then click where I want the sketch point on the line. And now I can press the escape button and I can get hold of that point and I can drag it back down to my line. Now you see that it's because of the way the spline works, it's still got some issues around there. So I'm going to insert a few more spline points and keep moving those about. Each time I have to press the escape button, otherwise I could put in multiple spline points at a time and then press escape button and then be able to move those about. It's a little bit tiresome at this point, if I'm honest, but it's better to spend a little bit of time to perfect this corner. Note that sometimes it's better to place a point somewhere else before the error, so you can alter the angle at which it goes into that spline that's causing the error. As you see now here, it's leveled itself out. It's worth noting here that what happens is that a point might constrain itself to a point, another line, so you can highlight that constraint and click the delete button to remove that constraint, and then you can move those away from that line if you so wished. Note on the right there's a snap checkbox. I've got it unticked, and this allows me to move things around close to the line. If you have that ticked, it will automatically want to constrain itself to the nearest line if you get too close. After a little bit of messing, I feel I've got that curve just right. It leads out of the top part and curves round the angle into the side part. Next, we need to consider making the lip around the edge. And to do this, we're going to use the offset feature. So we press the S key and start typing the offset, and we want the top one there with that like blue icon. And all we're literally going to do here is we're going to create an offset away from the other line, so it replicates the shape of the original line, but just a little bit further out. Like this. So we've done it at 1.3 millimeters, and now we need to do the same again. So again, we're going to select the offset feature, and we're going to do this, I think it's 1.8 millimeters inside. So this creates the downwards wall, if you like, inside the part. We now need to turn that upper left-hand quadrant into a selectable item. So we're going to join these up here like this. But what is key is we need to make sure that these go up at 90 degrees. If we don't, then when we come to use the mirror object, it might not make a complete mirror. So if you notice that it's not quite 90 degrees, so we'll lock in 90 degrees. And then make sure that anything that goes up to there joins that actual 90 degree angle by just adding an additional line if necessary. So again, we type 90 degrees and lock it in. Notice the line doesn't quite attach. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that we add another line to make sure that's definitely 90 degrees. Here we go, look. We didn't start off at exactly the right point. So we'll delete that line by pressing the delete button. And we'll create the new line there. And go up 90 degrees. We are 90 degrees. Let's lock it in. Zoom in, and we are attached. Again, go up 90 degrees. Lock it in by pressing the tab and we can drag that up to meet that. Now look, we can't quite touch that, look there. I'm going to line it up better, and I'm going to draw a line across to bridge that gap. Now we need to do now the same on the left hand side. And here I'm going to create a construction line just to help me position that at the right place. Notice that I'm using 1.8 millimeters, and I can't use a formula here. It doesn't work. So I must explicitly mention that I want 1.8 millimeters here. Underneath the other one at 1.3. Now I should be able to drag lines down and join those together, but this time turning off the construction line. Now we've done that, it's time to start removing these this rectangle sizing line that we used initially to size our part, because they're going to interfere with what we're going to do next. So I'm just going to highlight them and click the delete button. All 4 of them are around. Now obviously some of them are needed, so we're going to have to replace those 2 that are needed. But that's quite easy now because we have dots and connection blocks already. So we can connect a line between there and there to replace the bit we've just deleted. And I think that's it actually, because the top one is actually already starts straight into an arc, so I think we're okay there. It's now time to finish that sketch and start extruding the body of the part. Now I'm thinking about 15mm, looking at the original part. So I'll extrude that downwards, 15mm. And then we need to turn the sketch back on there, by clicking that eye, so we can get to these 2 parts here. So we can put the lip and the downward part of the sketch. Now notice how that one won't highlight the outside one. That means there's something wrong with our sketch. It means that it's not sealed. There's a problem there. Look, that's a construction line rather than a normal line. So we need to fix that. We'll go in and edit the sketch. And we can use the X key for this. We can highlight the line, just press the X key, and it'll turn from a construction line to a normal line. And you can see now it will actually highlight. So we can finish the sketch. You can see another issue actually here, so we'll fix this. We'll extrude those as I want to. So up 1.3, so that's an upwards motion. Now look, you see the part's not joined. That's because we should also extrude that one downwards, just there. So we'll edit the first extrusion, and we'll add a downward part there onto that. And now we get a better shape with a lip that's actually attached to the body. Now there is an issue. I've got 2 bodies, and that's because I made that first error. It created it as a new body rather than a join. So I'm going to select join on that, and now I've only got 1 body, one physical object, and that's going to be necessary when we come to do the part and we want to print it and when we want to mirror it. Now the part's starting to take shape, so let's switch off that canvas by just clicking there, so we can't see it anymore, and we can turn that sketch off now too. That's causing them construction bars there. Now we can just see the first quadrant of our part. Next we need to consider how we're going to create that nice concaved base. And actually what we're going to do is we're going to make a convexed bottom of the part, and then we're going to cut out the inside to follow the shape of the bottom. So with that in mind, we need to think about the extent of it going down through into the soap dish holder. So I know that I need to come down about 8mm for that. Then once I've done that, I can consider creating an arc down to that bottom corner, that bottom right hand corner along here. And to do that, I could type arc, but I'm going to select it from the create menu. and I'm going to create a 3-point arc. I'm going to click on this point here, on the end point, and I'm going to try and position that so it doesn't fall off the base of the design. To sit nice and inside the design. That looks about right there. Once we've done that, we need to cut off the bottom part, because it's in fact the bottom left section here we're going to cut away. So if we just place some line, using the line tool, place section to cut that off, we can now highlight that. Right click and select extrude. We just spin it around a little bit like this. We can see when we do that, we extrude the part. So we've got the first shape. We now need to move on to the other side. Essentially now we need to do the same on this side. Come down 8mm and create the arc. Again, we need to make sure we don't leave the bottom of the part when we create the arc, and we need to create a section around the bottom part so we can cut that bit away. Now here we see that when we try to form the cut, we start to get errors, and there's a reason for this. If we look at it in more detail of where it gets up to before the error occurs, you can see there's a little point where it's not cutting. Currently inspecting the part, trying to work out what's wrong. Go back a little bit more there. You see that little bit of grey that appears? That's because it's not cutting the whole of the part. There's a little bit of an out section. It's not quite cutting away. So we need to fix that. And we need to fix that within the sketch. So I'll just fix the orientation of the part using the orientation tool in the top right hand corner there. And then zooming in, we can see the error there. Look, you can clearly see that I'm not quite up to the edge with this cut. So I'm going to draw another line from that point there, and I'm going to come out. I'm going to come out a little bit further. Now, when you're cutting, it's worth remembering that you can't cut thin air if you like. So it's better to take too much off than not quite enough. So I'm just going to extend this down now to the very bottom. Now what I actually do here to make sure that's coming down 90 degrees, I press the tab key, and I know then I'll be in the tab box, and I can just type 90 and press enter, and that'll locate it like it just did then. It located it to 90 degrees straight down. Then I can just click about level with the bottom and then just make that final connection. So I've got now another section I can extrude to form the cut. So I'm now doing the extruding. I select both these two parts, the original bit and the extra bit, to make sure that when I do this cut here, I cut the original section I wanted to plus the extra bit. As you see, that's resolved the error. Just for this next step, I want to point out, don't try and get that bottom at this stage too round, because if you make it too complicated, the next step won't be able to calculate itself correctly. It's better to do it at the end. The next step is one of the simplest things to do in Fusion 360, and that is to mirror a part. And you can see we've only got the top quadrant here, but you're going to see how easy it is to mirror that to create a full part. So I used the S key there again and typed mirror in the shortcuts bar, and I've got it on bodies as the object type, and I'm selecting the body and then the mirror plane, and it's also got an operator of join. So now I've got one body, still one body, but I've got the bottom part mirrored. Do the same thing again. This time I'm going to select this right hand side, and I'm going to mirror it again, join selected, and click OK. It's as simple as that. So just consider that when you're designing a part. Is there any symmetry? And think that if you can just design one part of that and mirror it, then you can change that part, which also then changes the mirror of the part. So if we had a hole here in this top corner, and it was a hole was replicated all the way around, then we'd only have to alter the one hole, and all the other holes would follow suit around. Now for a new command, and it's called shell. We're going to press the S key, type shell, and choose the blue shell. And we need to make sure we get the settings right here. to make sure we get a nice curved concaved shell. So we're going to select the rounded option, and I'm going to set an arbitrary value of about 1.8 millimeters for the thickness. And I'm also going to ensure I've got the inside option set. And as you see, that's cut out, and it's formed the shape based on the bottom of the part to create a nice shell, concave shell inside. Okay, it's not smooth yet. We're going to smooth it out in a minute, but it's a step forward. I'm going to use another new command now called Fillet, and we're going to do this by highlighting those lines and smoothing them out, if you like. And we're starting on the inside, and that's important because if I cut away from the bottom at the moment, I might cut through the 1.8 millimeter thickness. So I'll start on the inside, and look here, I'm selecting multiple lines, and I'm doing that by pressing the control button at the same time as selecting the lines. If I release the control button, I can see what effect I'm having, and it allows me to select the right line. And as you see now, that's actually created quite a good smooth surface. And we can see if I go a bit too mad with the numbers, and what happens is it just makes a mess of it. So a bit of trial and error there to find the best smoothing effect. Next, we need to look at creating those bars on the bottom that hold the soap up out of any residue water. To do this, we're going to create a sketch on that bottom plane, and then we're going to just draw in these rectangles. Now we're going to use some formulas here, and we're going to learn how to do that for the sizing. So if we change one, it changes all of them on the part. So we're just going to put that in there at 330. You see it's not exactly central at the moment. So pressing the D key, I can use dimensions, and I can stipulate certain dimensions from different points. So you can see I've created 50 millimeters there from the center. And now I'm clicking on the center and the bottom of that rectangle, and I'm going to say I want it to be, let's say 20, 25 maybe, 15. There you go. To position that where I need it to be. So now I've drawn a second box, and I want to position it again using the D key, create its size and position. And notice how I'm going to click on that 30 at the top, and now that takes on that value as a formula. And again here I'm going to do the same here for the width of the part, or the height, I guess, looking at it from that. I'm going to click on the 3, and then it adopts the 3. And we can do the same for the dimensions for the positioning. So remember, I'm using the D key here to be able to select the positioning and click on certain parts of the design. And watch what happens when I change this value here. They both change. And again at this point, okay, now what we can do is you can put some maths in here also. Let's put that back. Let's say we want half of the 30 here, so click on the 30, divide by 2. Now it still produces 15, but when I alter the size of this part, it still centralizes itself. So I've now drawn the next rectangle, and this is going to be a pattern of 4. We're going to use the pattern command to create the other 3 of these. Just to introduce you to another command. I am going to size this using the same idea with the formula. Notice here that formulas can be quite complicated and complex. So here I want to divide it by 3 and then times it by 2 to get 2/3 of the distance. There's a slight overlap there. Now for this next bit, I want to replicate that new rectangle into a pattern of 4, a rectangle pattern. So I'm going to press the S key and start typing pattern. And if I scroll down a little bit, it's there, look, a rectangular pattern. So we're going to select that, and we're going to select the object, which is these 4 sections around here, these 4 lines. So I've got it, press the control key and click all 4. And then I can drag across. You see I'm getting actually 3. So I can change the 3 to a 2. And the bottoms also. There you go. So now I've got a pattern of 4. I can alter the distance to make it correct in the area that I want it to be. So it's now 15 distance of 15 apart, and this distance here I think was going to be 50, and that creates a nice pattern sat there in the middle. And if I click OK, then it will create those shapes onto my sketch. Notice that if I alter this here, it still alters all the new parts. Now that's not going to compute very well, because remember I typed in a value of 15, a set 15 into the pattern for that distance, so I'm a little bit stuck with that. But in this instance I think it's worth it, because I would have had to draw those 3 rectangles manually, and that could be a bit of a pain. So next we need to use a command called Emboss, which is going to, it's very similar to extrusion, but we highlight the face in which we want to extrude from, which can be a curved surface. So using the S key and selecting extrude, then we're going to select these just like we would if we were going to use the extrude command. The only difference is here we have to select the face in which you want to extrude from. As you see, it's actually extruded those. They look slightly out of line, but that's because of the orientation of the sketch versus the part. But we've done that, and as simple as that, we have got our extrusions that are coming out of the face and not appearing at the bottom. So almost there now. I can see a little bit of deformity just here, look. I'll highlight it there. That's a little bit strange, and I'm just going to use the press pull command, which is a really easy command to use. It's just a case of finding the correct value where it allows the press pull to be computed, if you like, to get rid of that area. So I know it's going to be about 1.8 mil, but as we see here, 1.8 mil it's just a little bit too much, and I think we end up with 1.799 from memory. Again, sometimes it's a lot easier just to type in the value you need. See, 1.8 fails, but 1.799 is perfect. Here at this point, I just need to use the fillet command again, just so as I can allow this part to slip into its holder easier. So I'm going to S key, as we've done a few times now, and start typing fillet and select that. You need to make sure you get all the edge around here. Now I've got the control key pressed, and if I was to release the control key, I'd be able to see what it was going to look like so far, if you like. But I can keep it pressed, and I can keep going round the part, highlighting each of those lines on that edge, so I can curve it slightly, ensuring I get all the bits, even the little sections like that one there. Look, that would cause an error. So it's selected. I've got them all. I believe that's the last one. And there you go. And then when I let go of the control key and type in a value, it will curve by 3. Now I find that when you're doing 3D printing, anything less than 3 is probably not really going to show. It'll look better on the screen, but not actually do anything on the part itself. And here I'm going to do the inside too. You can see I'm letting go of the control key, and you can see what it's actually doing. You can see where I need to actually highlight the line to make it go around the part. Don't forget to use the orientation button in the top right hand side to help you get back to home. And all we need to do now is just have a final check over the part. We look to make sure we've only got one body, because that's what I want. I can turn back on the visibility of the canvas, and I can check that it sits in that canvas frame. There we go, I've only got the one body. I can change the appearance if I need to by S key, type in appearance. I can select this and select edit, and then I can change that to a different colour just to make it stand out a little bit more on my design, just so I can see any sort of overlap. So that lip on the top of the shell dish needs to sit on top of the actual soap dish frame. As we can see, it will do that. The frame is up to the inside edge, while the lip goes over the frame. That's all looking good. I think at this point also it's worth thinking about how you're going to orientate this piece on the print bed. And what I see here is that the piece on the left is printed at 60 degrees with reference from the back of the part to the bed, and the one on the right is printed at 71 degrees. And actually stood up in this way prints much better than being straight flat on the bed. It uses less support filament, and the overall quality of the part is much better. It's worth saying that the best quality part was printed with the 60 degrees. This was mainly due to the top edge, because at 71 degrees the effects of gravity on that top underside can clearly be visible, whereas it's much better at 60 degrees, and maybe 50 degrees would have been even better.
Well, I hope that was a little bit useful, and if it was, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.